Well, hello there. You've come to the right spot for another episode of Big Gare's Amazing Adventures. So now with another real-life story of growing up in the USA in the 1960s, here's Big Gare.
Madman Muntz. It was a name I would hear around me when I was growing up in the 1960s. Responding to what someone had said or done, Mom would say it sounded like what Man Muntz would have said or done. I knew there was a brand of televisions named Muntz, but that's all I knew at the time. The old Muntz name popped into my head recently, so I decided, after all these years, to find out more. I was fascinated. Turns out Muntz was quite an interesting character in his time. Earl William Muntz was an engineer and businessman who began his career, after dropping out of high school, as a used car salesman in 1934 in his hometown of Elgin, Illinois. Seeing that car sales seemed to be more profitable in California, he moved his business there, opening a Kaiser Frazer dealership. Car sales should be fun, he thought, so he began crazy stunts, promotions, and advertising, adopting the madman persona. At one point he promised to smash to bits a car he called the Daily Special if it didn't sell by the end of the day. He made bizarre promises, such as buying cars at retail and selling them at wholesale prices. The promotions were carried on flamboyant billboards and crazy ads on radio, and later television. Eventually he came out with his own car model dubbed the Muntz Jet. It was of an unusual design, being built with such things as aluminum body panels and a removable fiberglass top. It is said he priced the limited production vehicle for about $1,000 less than it cost to build. Production lasted from 1951 until '54, and only about 400 were ever built. Today they are prized by collectors and considered to be predecessors of the Ford Thunderbird or the Chevy Corvette. His next project took him in an opposite direction, from selling an expensive car to selling low or at least lower cost TVs than what was the norm. He got involved in the electronics industry with Muntz televisions in 1947. TVs were very expensive devices at the time, about $400 for a typical 12-inch screen model. That's over $5,000 in today's dollars. Muntz's goal was to make his sets more affordable than other brands. He did this in a couple of ways. The first way he reduced the cost was by streamlining the circuitry of televisions. He would tell his technicians to take an existing set, which he considered more complicated and more costly to build than need be, and remove specific tubes and other parts that he believed weren't really necessary. When the set stopped functioning properly, just back up a step and put the last removed part back in. That would be the basis for a new Muntz model. In fact, this idea of simplifying became known as Muntzing. The sets were reliable because with fewer tubes they produced less heat, and heat was the bane of tube electronics. And because they were less expensive to produce, Muntz TVs could be sold for a lower price than competing brands. Muntz advertised his TVs heavily on radio and then started running ads on TV beginning in the early 1950s. Now, advertising TVs on TV may seem counterintuitive at first thought, since the early adopters already had a TV, so this was seemingly like preaching to the choir, but I think the idea was to get the Muntz name circulating among family and friends, since the potential marketplace was huge. In 1950, just 9% of U.S. households had a television. In 1952 alone, Muntz grossed nearly $50 million in television sales, or about $573 million in today's dollars. Within just 5 years, 75% of U.S. households had a television. Here's a clip from one of a series of commercials for Muntz TVs, featuring the voice of John Brown, who played Digger Odell on the popular radio and TV program The Life of Riley.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you're considering television, buying or trading, Think a moment. What set in all America costs so little, works so well? Thank you.
Another way of reducing cost was to sell direct from their own stores in larger metropolitan areas. Newspapers in major cities at the time included in their Sunday editions a TV program guide booklet. He would place these small ads multiple times in these booklets, listing a phone number. Just call and we'll deliver a new Muntz TV right to your home. I remember those ads. Seems like they appeared on about every other page. Shrewd businessman that he was, Muntz deliberately concentrated his sales efforts in larger urban areas because potential customers would be closer to TV stations for more powerful signals. This is where Muntz sets, with their simplified circuitry, provided the best reception. He purposefully left TV sales in more country areas to other, more expensive brands. I want to give them away, but my wife won't let me, Muntz was known to say in ads for his TVs, while dressed in long johns and a Napoleon hat. In another stunt, Muntz would send TV knobs to prospective customers, saying just call and we'll bring the rest of the set. In later years, a guy calling himself Crazy Eddie would, in the New York area, use some similarly oddball promotional tactics. My grandparents had a Muntz set. It was a big, blonde wooden box held up by spindly legs. I remember watching TV on Friday nights at their house several times. My parents would drop me off there while they went out for dinner and a movie. The Flintstones would air at 8:30, and I was there to watch it on their Muntz TV. This would have been in the early 60s. The set worked fine, but then their house was not far from the TV station's transmitter. They would bring me a gift when they came back. One time it was a big box of 64 Crayola crayons with a built-in sharpener. Wow. A big deal for a kid my age at the time. Now let's get back on topic. Among other achievements in electronics, Muntz also developed a 4-track tape cartridge and player, which unfortunately got overshadowed by the Lear 8-track system that became the choice for a car stereo sound system. In later life, he developed an early television widescreen projection receiver and continued in electronics as a retailer in early cell phones, bringing their price down from $3,000 to $1,000 before passing away in 1987 at the age of 73, and was later inducted into the Consumer Electronics Hall of Fame. Well, there you have it, an abbreviated history of Earl William Muntz, better known as Madman Muntz. It may seem cliché, but perhaps you could say he became a legend in his own time.
Thanks for stopping by. We'll be back again soon with another story. See you then for another episode of Big Gare's Amazing Adventures. Bye-bye for now.